All right. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Is my audio okay till the end? Wonderful. Thanks. This is the last session of the last day of Tech Summit. And thank you for still being with us and joining me. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Power Apps and Flow. I'll probably dive deep into it if possible. My name is Pratap Ladani. I'm a PM on the Customer and Partner Success team in the Business Application Platform organization within Microsoft. This is the organization that, this is the engineering team for Power Apps and Flow, as well as other technologies like Dynamics and Power BI. You might have heard about some of these technologies. So as a Customer Partner Success PM, my job is to take these early new products, bring it to customers and partners like you, and get feedback and feed it back into the engineering channel. So I'm a bridge between the engineering team and customers and partners. I call myself, I'm the voice of the customer in the team that way. So I don't own features on the product, but I own end-to-end scenarios that customers are trying to adopt in the early product cycle. Before we begin the session, I'm just wondering how many of us in the room have seen a demo or heard a similar session on Power Apps and Flow before? If you can raise your hands, it'll get me an idea. Roughly around 10%, 15% of you have seen a demo before. How many of you have installed Power Apps and or used Flow in your actual life? I mean, if you've tried it out, installed it, or played with it already? Few people. And then the rest, I'm assuming this is the first time we are hearing about Power Apps and Flow. You're curious and you want to learn more. That's probably everybody else in the room too. So we will cover from the basics. I have a slide deck which is basically covering the introduction to both Power Apps and Flow. And we'll also go into some demos and hopefully keep some time towards the end to answer your questions. Because I have a lot of content to cover in 1 hour and 15 minutes, I'll request you reserve the questions towards the end so that we can really complete the agenda that we have planned for, and we can jump into questions for you. And frankly, 1 hour, 15 minutes for Power Apps and Flow is a very short time. We generally take 1.5 hours just to introduce Power Apps. So if we will go a little bit fast. We want to cover a lot of concepts. It will be really at a high level with some demos and things that can help you sink in as to what these technologies are and how you can use them. Cool, let's dive in. When we're talking about business applications inside of enterprises, business applications are really a digital way to capture a business process or automate a business process. If you have a business process that is manual or people are doing it in some way, now you want to capture it in a digital way, typically that's how an LOB application is born, right? So that any application is an attempt to digitize the business process. And when we look at the options that enterprises have today for LOB applications, business applications, we are all familiar with this custom software development route. And that's the most used option for many of the line of business applications. However, we all know, if we are from the IT industry, we know this route, at least for the modern experiences that employees expect, the multi-platform apps, the apps that are available on iOS, Android, Windows, apps that are adaptable for a tablet form factor or a phone form factor, such apps are costly to create. It is also time-consuming to create such apps. So if you're looking at such apps, you typically have around 4 to 6 weeks of development time and 3 to 4 weeks of deployment time for a single version of the app to, from scratch to the end users getting that app and using it. With that time, as well as a lot of cost involved, at least you will put a couple of developers to develop that app for about 4 to 6 weeks. And you will also engage your business teams, your business analyst teams who will do the documentation, the requirements gathering. It takes roughly $150,000 to $450,000 just for one version of an app. And that is a cost hindrance, that is a time hindrance for a lot of line of business scenarios. Imagine an event like this. This is too big an event which Microsoft is hosting, but if you want to have a small event where, say, a couple of hundred of your employees are coming inside of an internal event, and you want to give them a mobile experience in an app, it is too costly and time-consuming for creating a custom software application for such a thing. If you want to empower your end users with mobile experiences internally, this does not meet the ROI justification for a lot of scenarios. So we only have a few dots covered in the larger scheme of business solutions that require to be digitized. A few of them can be done through the custom software development route. And we see that today. If we see all of us probably are carrying at least 2-3 devices with us today, running smart apps. And we are empowered with all that functionality that is available through the modern smartphones and the apps that we use. However, when we go back to our enterprises, when we go to our offices, and the apps that we use there are still looking very dated. They look so traditional that we feel that dichotomy on a daily basis. Why do I see an amazing travel booking app outside, but if I have to book my vacation, why do I see that old UI, which probably my grandfather would have seen, right? So it's so different, and this becomes one of the reasons for it. So what other options do enterprises have for line of business applications? So they can go and buy something off the shelf. Nowadays, it's the SaaS world, so they can search for a SaaS service out there, someone who has created a similar looking app, similar functionality of an app, and try to just use that, consume that SaaS service. We can see there are many more dots covered in that because there are so many solutions out there. I don't need to build all of them. I can just use them. I can subscribe to them. However, the challenge for many of the scenarios there is we may not find an exact similar SaaS app that I need for my custom business. Or even if I find one, I cannot customize it to the way I need to use it. So otherwise, I'll have to tweak my process to meet what is available, or I just have to let it go. There may not be an app for me. So there are many more other ideas that our business teams have in their mind. If you go to any business leader inside of an organization, if you go to any person who is person in the business user org, they will tell you 100 ideas that if I could just do this, if I could just, a salesperson would say, if I just knew that the key stakeholder I'm meeting, he just changed his title. I mean, he just got a promotion. So I would have been so much empowered, and I want to get that information in my fingerprints. It's there trapped somewhere in the CRM system, but we cannot get that information to this guy in the way he can consume it. So there are lots and lots of ideas. They are on the table. People then start using anything that they have in their disposal, like a Excel sheet, an Access application, a SharePoint list, and they try to automate it the way they can deal with it without being converted into an app. And we feel this is an area where Microsoft can really play a big role. We found this as an opportunity. And as a mission to empower every person and organization on the planet, we felt this is something we can do. We can bring in a technology that can empower those users who do not call themselves developers, who may be familiar with technology, maybe a developer in the past, but may not be up to date around everything that the latest technologies have to offer. So they may not be aware of the latest Java version. They may not be aware of the latest .NET, aspects of it, the JavaScript, library to use in modern development. But they may be able to translate business requirements for a technical team. They may be able to use technology to their best efforts. They may be a master in Excel or PowerPoint. This is the typical profile we find. We call them the power users. Nowadays, even in the market, you will hear a term citizen developers. So Power Apps is a technology which is meant for such users. And it also solves this dichotomy in the modern business world where on one side, IT wants secure, scalable, managed, integrated, and a compliant app. And on the other side, business wants a fast app, iterative app, cross-platform app. Both these things always, it's a pull and push. If you get one, you won't get the other one. So how do we deliver to this promise as well as empower that audience, which is the power user audience or the citizen developer audience? That is what we felt is where we can add value, and Power Apps squarely delivers on that. I'll come to a slide where we introduce Power Apps there. Just before we jump in, just wanted to step back and paint a picture around where does Power Apps and Flow fit into the overall scheme of things. The second layer from the bottom here, the application platform, that's where we see Power Apps and Flow, and a new concept that we introduced during the Power Apps GA called the Common Data Model. It is now called the Common Data Service. So these technologies fit into the application platform, which sits on top of our Azure services and is leveraged by Office 365 and Dynamics 365 ecosystems. So we attempt to provide a bridge between all the data sources within Office as well as all the data sources in the Dynamics 365 world. And we obviously have Power BI and Cortana Intelligence suites and the other technologies which can also exploit the connections out there. And we have introduced AppSource earlier last year, which is our SaaS marketplace for solutions. This is, we feel as a vendor, as a software vendor, we really have all the pieces that are required for an enterprise to deliver an intelligent cloud and all the services on top of it. So I'll first, before I jump into the product, let me show an example, because this makes us connect to what are we talking about, what can Power Apps deliver, what can Flow deliver to us. So we had an early adopter customer and a partner who worked with us to enable a customer called Mars Drinks. They are based in Germany. We have Mars in America as well. It's a global company. But in Germany particularly, they have a beverage vending service that they provide. They not only own these, the dispensers, as you see, the beverage dispensers, they have it as a brand called Clicks. But they also manage them in the sense they keep the stock up to date on all these machines, these dispensers. And they deploy personnel who will go out every day and refill all these machines. And as a contract within Germany, they are bound by their contract to, if anything goes out of stock, they have a legal penalty clause or something. So it is in their best interest to keep it always optimally stocked. And they have to send a person every day to fill up all of these machines that are leased all across Germany and their clients. So the challenge they had is they wanted an experience for that filler persona, the restocking person who is going around and filling these machines, to have the exact information that the person needs throughout his day. When he's going around filling, he needs to know different information at different stages, and they wanted to give them an experience, give that person an experience. Now, if you look at the ROI justification for such an app, would never justify native app development, a custom software development for this, and it is too custom that they won't find an existing solution out there. So they came across, the partner here was a BI partner, and they were aware of Power Apps being presented as a technology to do rapid application development for power users. So they suggested this to customers, and let me walk you through the experience that our partner built for the customer. Hopefully this will give us an idea about what we are talking about here. I'll switch to my iPhone here, a demo iPhone which I have brought today with me. And this is the app that the Mars restocking person now gets. So this was built by the Neil Analytics team, the partner involved here, and their team of BI developers. So they are not an application developer team. They were business analysts. They were BI developers. And they built this over the period of 1.5 months, with our help, because it was too early a technology that time. This is before GA, much before GA. So this is an experience I am getting. I am the person, I have to go in and now fill up stock. So I get this as the first screen when I open up the app. It gives me the current location where I am in, what is the temperature there. It pulls up information from an API, a weather API. And it uses my GPS sensor to give me the actual information. So it shows me Chicago because I am in Chicago right now. We have configured it to be in Celsius because it's supposed to be used in Germany, and Germany uses Celsius and kilometers and not miles. So you see even the total kilometers I have to travel is 466. I have 6 stockouts. Let me go ahead and get started. So in the morning when I'm starting my day, I need to know how much stock should I take out of my warehouse and put inside of my truck. So I get an information page or screen which tells me exactly that. I can filter out by coffee, I can filter out by lattes, and filter out by tea, and I can keep checking those items as I go inside my warehouse and keep filling these items into my truck. And I know I have to take 10 sleeves of this Jacob's coffee, and I know exactly what information I need at that point. See, my loading is complete. I filled up my truck with everything that is needed. I say loading complete. The next information I'm presented is, where do I need to go today? So it gives me a list of all the locations I have to visit. And we have prioritized the ones which are stock out. Remember, we have a penalty clause. If the stockouts don't get stocked correctly, we might be penalized for it. So we have prioritized the stockouts and also the distance between where I am and where I have to go. And it picked up the first location that I have to visit to. So that's the Zelig GmbH in Deutschland in Germany. And if I want, I could just click on this icon on there. It will open up a map application, whichever map application I've configured my phone. This is an iPhone, and I'm using Google Maps here. So it will bring up the Maps application, and I can open up the route, and I can start. It will prompt me for directions from that location. I've intentionally configured it to use Frankfurt as a starting point and not Chicago. Otherwise, it will take me a couple of days to even fly there and be there. But then when I'm done with it, I reach there. I come back. I don't want to rate you. Let's come back. And I've arrived. I came to this building. Imagine McCormick Place. There is a similar place, Zelig. I reach there. I click on arrived. Then it shows me within this building now what all things are needed to be filled, so I need to take them out of my truck and put it on my dolly. So I know how many machines are there and what all stocks are gone out of stock. So I just fill up everything, put it in my dolly, and I go inside. It tells me there's only one machine inside it. Take that machine and fill up the stock for it. And also tells me exactly where to fill what. So I don't make a mistake. I know it's this, and I know the name of the product that I'm carrying. I just fill it in, and I'm done. Because I am now having a smart app versus what would have happened before, if I'm going there, I have a paper printout, I note down everything, I go in and fill up, and then I realize there is a leakage going in this machine. There is some maintenance activity required for it. I will note it down, probably come down and call, or maybe in the evening when I reach office, I'll note it down, I'll send an email to someone, or I'll put it in a ticketing system if I have access to. But since it's an app, I could actually click on this button here while I'm at the machine. I'll put my notes there. There is a leakage out there. And I'll say whether the priority is high priority or normal priority. I'll save and continue. It actually sends a push notification and an email to my supervisor. Actually, I got a push notification on this device here. I'll show the flow there. So there is a flow behind the scene which is working on my behalf, sending all those notifications to people. And I can also take a picture of the device using the phone's camera, and save it along with my visit. So I don't have to then describe where I saw the problem. In the past, it would have been a nightmare to just explain what was the problem I found there. I'm done with this. I go on, and I'm finished with one location. I go to the next location, and I keep going and complete my day. So this is a very customized app created for a given persona type, which is working on all platforms. I'm using an iPhone. The person could have been using a Windows phone or an Android phone or probably a tablet. It will work across all the platforms. So that's the power of what we're talking about here. And I will quickly come back to the first screen and show the flow that was working behind the scene, just for us to understand how the flow was set up. And I'll also show the app that was working there before we jump into the introductions then. So let me, this is the flow. Let me go to my flows. This is the Mars error report flow. And so there was a flow which said whenever a Power Apps button from within a Power Apps app, somebody clicks on a button, and I wired this up together, it sends a push notification with this error reported in this machine number and sends up a few parameters from within Power Apps, and then sends an email to my supervisor. In this case, I'm sending it to myself only for the demo purpose, and with all that information needed. So this is real-time information about what is going wrong with that, or the report that the person on the field delivered, and I get an instant notification for that. And if I open up the app here, the app is this is the Power Apps Studio client. So this is installed on Windows 8 and Windows 10 machines. I can go to the store and install the app. If I open up this Mars restocking app, each app within Power Apps is treated as a document. So traditionally, we treat app as a bunch of code. We have source code. We use source control for it. We compile the code. We deploy the code. We publish it through app stores, and then it reaches your end client. In this case, every app is treated as a document. And as documents do, you can share your document with others. You can store your document at a central place. In this case, it's Power Apps Service. So within the Power Apps client app, we have a place to store all these documents. We call it the Power Apps Cloud Service. And once you have your app on the cloud, you can run it from any of your machines. Like what a document can be opened. So if I have a PowerPoint presentation, I can execute the slideshow of that presentation. Similarly, I can run my application, which is a simple app document. MS app is the document extension. And this is the editor experience of it. I won't go through all the details right now. I'll introduce what does the editor look like and the basic concepts of it in a minute. But there are all the screens that you saw today, including the machine layout and everything, which is all wired up with data as I keep going along that. So just to show that backend experience of that app, and it's really a Power App and it's not a native app. Let's come back to this and introduce a bunch of concepts, and we'll come back to the designer very quickly. Make sense so far? Let's come back to, again, a little bit of the way we see these technologies and how they empower people. And we call this as a part of the business application platform. We call all these technologies the business application platform of technologies. That is the name of our organization as well. And all these pillars or these boxes there are really organizational units within our organization. Each one of them is a team within Microsoft, and they are delivering that particular service. So Power BI, how many of us in the room are familiar with Power BI? Many of you. So this is the same team which delivers Power BI. And like Power BI, Power Apps and Flow also are, we call them sister products because they all are, they're targeted towards the power user persona or the citizen developer persona, which we talked about before. But they are aligned to 3 different pillars. We call this the measure pillar, the act pillar, and the automation pillar. Anything to do with data, to analyze data, to visualize data, to get insights out of the data, that comes into the measure pillar. Anything to do with action, whether you are creating an application to capture information, to create some task somewhere, but anything to do with apps is in the act pillar, and anything that you try to automate, either in the form of flows or workflows that we showed there, or it could be even professional workflows like the BizTalk services and API management things. Those technologies fall under the automation pillar. So similar to Power Apps, Power BI, and Flow for the power user, we also have technologies that cater to developers and IT professionals along those 3 pillars. So we have SQL Data Analytics, SQL BI, Professional, Power BI Pro Edition. Similarly, from the app side, we have app services, Azure Functions. You might have attended some of the sessions during Tech Summit around several of these technologies. And from an automation pillar, we have Logic Apps, API management, and BizTalk services. All of those fall under that pillar. We also have 2 foundational technologies, and we won't cover that today in the talk, but we have this Common Data Platform, which is now called the Common Data Service, and the connectors and the gateway. The connectors and the gateway and Common Data Service are the back-end components that help power all these above technologies. We'll introduce some of the connections and how they manifest in Power Apps and Flow. So coming to Power Apps now, this is a service which is a custom, which enables, it's a SaaS service from Microsoft, so it's not a PaaS or an IaaS service. You just go to powerapps.com and you can start using the service right away. There is no installation required, no configuration required. You just sign in, and you get an ability to create custom business apps without writing any code. Apps that can run on any platforms, apps that can run on a Windows platform, a Windows phone or a tablet, an iOS platform, or an Android platform, and also on the web. The same app will also run on any modern browser. You open up a Safari, you open up a Chrome, open up an Edge or an IE, the app will still run exactly the way you've coded for. And that too without writing any code, because all we use within the application is Excel-like expressions. Our Power Apps expression language is derived for or inspired from the Excel expression language. And Excel, if you're using Excel, ifs and sums and lookups and averages, the functions we use in Excel, that's the language we've used here, which we assume a lot of people are familiar with that kind of functions versus the familiarity of JavaScript or C# is much low in the general audience in the enterprise. It provides 3 capabilities. One, a capability to connect to a lot of data sources, and we'll see some of the data sources in the next slides, a few slides. We make it easy to connect to a SharePoint site, to a Salesforce service somewhere, a CRM online service, and many, many other data sources, including on-premises connections. So if you have a SQL server inside of your inside of your network somewhere, or a SharePoint server installed within your data center, you can connect to that and also to many more cloud services online. So we can connect to a lot of data connections seamlessly without really understanding the underpinnings of it. Which API to use, which SDK to use, you don't have to worry about anything. We make it so that any business user can also consume it. The second one is we make it easy to create apps and workflows using Flow without writing any code. And we'll see a few examples of that. And then you can publish these apps instantly. This is one more value prop. Today, if you have a compiled app, you created a native app, you have to still push it through AirWatch or Intune type of software distribution mechanisms within your enterprise. Or you have to publish your apps through the stores. You have to publish it to the iOS store, the Android store, the Windows store. All of this is very time consuming. Versus what we use here is create an app, and we'll do that now. We'll create an app, and I'll run it instantly from my iPhone. So the way we make it work is really through the player apps in all the platforms. So we have iOS store has a Power Apps app, Android store has a Power Apps app, and once you log into those apps, you start seeing and running all the apps that have been created by you or have been shared to you. So the player apps becomes the runtime environment. The player apps become the store for your enterprise apps for you to run on your devices. Similarly, Flow is a service that empowers end users to stitch together workflows between services which were not designed to talk to each other. So if you look at within a service, so within CRM, for example, you will have your workflow solution, but it knows CRM well. If you talk about SharePoint, within SharePoint, you can enable workflow within SharePoint. But when you're trying to talk to multiple services or multiple technologies, when an email comes, create a SharePoint line item. When a tweet happens on a particular hashtag, send a mail to someone and add a SQL Server record. Now, these Twitter and email system and SQL are not connected. But Flow allows you to connect all of these things together in a very, very easy to use way that even a business user can do it. So what we believe is it makes everybody work smarter. If you use Flow is one of the technologies that's the most easy and the slowest learning curve to adopt. And we'll show a demo so it makes it very easy for you to pick up. And there are a few scenarios that Flow highlights very well. Scenarios around getting notifications. Various tasks happening in many of these services. When a new record is added in SQL, send me a mail. Or when a new record is added on Salesforce or on SharePoint, send me a push notification, send me a text message. Notification scenarios like this. Or send a text message to everybody in my team if I'm ill, or things like that. And you can imagine what we want to connect, and we'll provide you the plumbing blocks to connect all of that together. Synchronizing files, is another use case of Flow. If you have multiple teams working off different services, some of them work on SharePoint, some of them work on Dropbox, you can keep them all in sync by just saying whenever a new file is created here, make sure a copy of that file is also created in this folder because the other team looks at this. Whenever a file is edited here, copy it back to that and keep this in sync in a way. Or collecting data, we want some systems to listen continuously to signals out there. So you may look at Twitter feeds and find out if there is a hashtag, this hashtag, put it all in a SQL Server for me to then analyze later, put a Power BI report on it on top of it. Or automate approvals. And approvals may not be just manager approvals. It could be within a team. We just want to, within a team, a project manager needs to know whether a person can go on leave this week or next week because he needs at least one person on the team to be there. And his manager is not really in the team. His manager is someone else. So having simple approval scenarios, creating it on your own to empower your own day-to-day work life. So think about this as if then that for the enterprise. If you're familiar with IFTTT as a service, this is kind of the enterprise. They are a competitor to us. Flow is an enterprise service for that, and think about it that way. And then we have the common data service or the common data model, which we showed as a fundamental component. This contains a set of standard entities. Entities are nothing but tables, if you think about it from a SQL term, but it is meant to be storing your data in a much more business-friendly way. So there are column types like address, column types like currency, and when you look at under the hood, address will have two lines of addresses: a city, a state associated, a country associated, and that country is a standard list of countries. When we are talking about storing data today, the business user doesn't think about it. I have to create a string with so much lines for first line of address. They just say it's an address, and we understand how an address is, and we'll create the correct data sets for you behind the scene. So it's a storage mechanism containing a lot of standard entities. And when I say standard entities, a customer is a standard entity, account is a standard entity, employee is a standard entity. And these entities, you don't have to worry about the fields for that. We'll know, a customer has to have a name, title, organization or account to belong to, and all of this is pre-created for you. So you just start using them, or you create your own entities if you want to for storing your Power Apps data, storing your Flow data. So it can be used in conjunction with both Power Apps and Flow. Over time, we do not have real-time sync in the data API that is on the side pillars, but this is our vision. Within a few months or so, we will start previewing some of that functionality where we'll show real-time sync with other systems like Office 365. Imagine your contacts are already there in your Outlook, and if you have a sync, it can populate all the customer contacts, all the contact information inside of your database just by enabling a sync. And when you are using it in your LOB application, you have to search for a customer. Your customer table is already filled with data because of that sync in place. Or you might come from, your product information may come from Office, Dynamics 365 for operations. That's the ERP product, the AX product. Or your customer information might come from a Dynamics CRM instance or Dynamics 365 for sales. And so all of these services, the sync framework will enable easy data import and export out of the common data service. And then the data API will expose professional developers to connect to the same data. So today, Power Apps and Flow can connect to it because we have a native understanding about how to talk to CDS, but we'll make this available as an API, as an SDK, so that if you have a C# developer who wants to write code to connect to it, can also do that. These two components are not yet available. They will be available in a preview format very soon. We also have Office 365 extensibility, primarily SharePoint. So if you look at the modern SharePoint lists now show buttons for Flow and Power Apps embedded within the SharePoint itself. So if you want to create an application from your SharePoint data, we'll do that in a demo soon, you can just click on that button and it'll create an app for you because it uses exactly the same data stored in that list. And they announced, the SharePoint team announced the availability of it along with our general availability in November last year. Flow and Power Apps both have buttons there. And then they also announced that Power Apps is the successor for InfoPath scenarios, particularly form scenarios on top of SharePoint lists. And Flow is the successor to the SharePoint Designer workflow scenarios. And however, InfoPath and SharePoint Designer 2013 are supported for 9 more years, up to 2026. So they're not going out of support immediately, but this is the successor. So if you're thinking about new scenarios, you're thinking about what should you migrate off to, these are the technologies announced by the SharePoint and the Office team as successors to both InfoPath and SharePoint Designer. And since GA, we've seen a huge uptake. We announced the public preview last year in May, April end actually, 29th of April, and we announced a general availability of both these services in late November, early December, so 30th of November. And since then, we have seen a huge uptake. More than 102,000 creators, 42,000 organizations adopting it. These numbers are actually off by a few months, and we've seen a much more heavy increase after that. I don't have the latest numbers to share, but this is a huge interest from the market, and we've seen that these technologies resonate a huge lot with enterprises. A few scenarios, we have another partner, Confluent, who has built an app for IPS. These are in production. They've created a very custom tablet app for a manufacturing repair process. They have around 8 apps. Each app has around 3,000 fields, and the largest app captures around 400 pictures in one process. It's a very customized app created for that customer, and they've created all of that in a very rapid iterative fashion, and this is already in production in several places already running. TransAlta is another customer from Canada. They are using an app. In fact, it was built by a person who just joined that team. So it's a new college hire in that team, and they gave them this task that I want an experience for finding out whether it is justifiable for sending a person if there is a windmill failure somewhere in the field. So they are into wind energy, and they have several windmills deployed various places within Canada. And if some windmill has a failure, it is sometimes way costly for sending a person to repair it than the ROI for it. It may not justify the cost of that person going there. So they do a lot of computation before they decide whether to send or dispatch a person or not. It also depends upon energy cost at that point, because electricity is bought and the cost fluctuates every day, as well as if there are other windmills in the same area which are having a need of a person, then they will dispatch a person only when it makes sense. This was created by a new joinee in the period of 3 months, without any background training experience. So it's a powerful app created, very valuable. In fact, the customer is super excited. They spoke with us at Ignite. If you see our Ignite recording, the customer spoke and demoed this solution then. Several use cases can be done, human resources, employee engagement. One caveat is Power Apps creates applications for enterprise usage. So within your enterprise, if you want to use apps and share within your employee scenarios, Power Apps is the right technology for you. If you're talking about creating applications for your consumers, people who are not part of your organization, Power Apps does not address that scenario at all. The apps that you create in Power Apps can only be shared to other users who are part of your same tenant, the same Office 365 tenant or the same Azure AD tenant. So if I'm Microsoft.com or somebody's Contoso.com, they can only share apps with other Contoso.com employees and not outside of that enterprise or not to unauthenticated users or consumers. So many scenarios are possible, and I will not go through all of that in the interest of time. A couple of points about licensing. Power Apps and Flow both are licensed per user. And if you already have an Office 365 license for a user or you have a Dynamics 365 license for a user, you are already entitled with the seeded, or we call this the Power Apps and Flow versions for Dynamics 365 and Office 365. You already have access to Power Apps and Flow. So many of you in your enterprises, if you're a partner, many of the customers that you cater to would already have access to Power Apps and Flow as part of their Office licenses, as part of their Dynamics licenses. That's the first license. And then we have the standalone versions. We have the Power Apps P1 license. Think about it as the user license. If anybody is just going to use apps created in Power Apps and not create new apps, then it's the P1 license. And then if you are creating apps, then it's a P2 license. Or if you're administrating apps, or if you're an administrator of a Power Apps environment or a Power Apps tenant, then you are a P2 user. So these are the other two are standalone licenses. This is a seeded license or the Office 365 or Dynamics 365 license. And there is details on our websites, powerapps.com/pricing. You can see a lot about how we price this. Power Apps also includes the Flow license. So if you buy a Power Apps license, you already have Flow along with it. But if you want separately Flow, we also have a Flow P1 and a Flow P2 license. This includes only Flow and not Power Apps. And again, this is on flow.microsoft.com/pricing. You can find more information about this. Let's jump into demos now. I think I'm done with the slides. The rest of the time, good about 30-35 minutes we have for demos. So first of all, we'll start with the demo, and I have a demo tenant here. I'm acting as a person called Megan B. And Megan is now creating an app so let's go to Megan's SharePoint list. So there is a custom list called vacation requests in my SharePoint portal. So it's a small team, and if we have to go for vacation, we ask our project manager to approve the vacation, or our managers to approve the vacation, but it's meant for our project, so we don't want to push it all the way into our HR systems. It's an internal thing. So we all used to just put it here, and our manager would go and say approved, or rejected. So this is a SharePoint list for our collaboration, but now we want to create a mobile app for this. It's not fun when I'm actually, in my evening, I'm not in front of my PC, and I have to request for a vacation. SharePoint doesn't provide, we have the SharePoint, iOS app now, the SharePoint, mobile app now, which can be used, but it doesn't still provide me a customized experience the way I want to tweak it. And if I want to add a branding to it and I want to fully customize that experience, it doesn't give all the capabilities. So SharePoint has provided an ability for any SharePoint user with a valid license for Office 365 to also create an app experience for it. So you see this button on top, and let me zoom in. This button here, and you see the Flow button next to it. By invoking this button, you can start creating an app which uses this data, and it will create a starting point for you with 3 screens already. So let us create an app, and so Megan is going in and saying, let me create a vacation request tech summit demo. I'll click on create. Let me zoom out a little bit, I guess. Ouch, this way. So it goes into the web experience of Power Apps. This is so if you do not have a Windows 8 machine, do not have a Windows 10 machine and you still want to play with Power Apps, you go to web.powerapps.com or just powerapps.com and sign in, and you can start creating applications using just your browser. This is not in parity with what is there in the studio. There are a few painful features which are missing right now, but over time we want to make it really on parity. So the same features will all exist on the web version as well as on the studio version, on installed version. So this created a basic app for me. I think I'll make it a little bit zoom out. So it has 3 screens: browse screen, detail screen, edit screen. It cannot be read. I'm sure you cannot read that at all. But I will only do a little bit of customization here, and then I'll go to the studio where I can zoom in and show you more. So it gives me some basic experience, and I can even change the columns I want to change. So for example, approved is the column. Instead of approved, I want to show the location where somebody is going, and I can change all the columns. I can change the entire theme for this app and make it a red colored application. I can change the layout for it, so it is already red. If I want to change the layout and change it to something else, I can customize it heavily. But this is all connected to the same SharePoint site. So if I want to make changes to it, if I want to edit it, I can still go ahead and edit, and all of this will still make changes to the enterprise to the SharePoint site behind. In fact, I don't want to edit somebody's vacation request. I just want to create a new request. So new request, and let me edit this screen and add the employee. The employee is already there. Let me make. I don't want to keep the approval status here because that's my manager will do that. So start date and end date, let me put the employee first, then the start date next, and title I don't want to show. Or maybe title is important because that's the location. I keep title as well. So I'm just hiding and showing fields. It's pretty tiny. Let me zoom in a little bit for you to see what I'm doing here. So I have 4 fields: employee, start date, end date, and location, and I will use that to create a new record inside of my SharePoint list. So I want to fill it up for myself, so I'll just say Megan. And it shows me Megan. My email address is valid. I'll put a start date. I want to go on from next Friday, and I'll go on for maybe 2 days, and I want to go to Hawaii. Or maybe I went to Hawaii last time, Cancun. And I've submitted this record. Now it knows which SharePoint site it has come from, what is the right way to connect to that SharePoint site. If I go back to the SharePoint site again, which is right here, and this created a new view to my SharePoint site too. So if I go back to my all items view, which is the default view, and if I refresh this, you will see a new item has been added, Megan Bowen, and wants to go to Cancun for these days. Now this, what is also working behind the scene is for the same list, I have created, actually, let me edit this list. I was already editing mode here. So I have set up a flow which monitors that SharePoint list location. So it is saying, monitor this SharePoint URL and check this list vacation request. If there is a new item created in that list, anytime there is a new item created, trigger the start of this flow. So the flow has a concept of triggers and actions. So the trigger in this case is SharePoint trigger, and it is watching for a new item created event. As soon as that item is created, it sends an approval email. So let me zoom in here, and it sends it to my manager Diego. It's hard coded. Everybody in our team reports to Diego, and there is a vacation request for this employee's display name, and it gives 2 options: approve or reject. This simple enough for understanding. So let's go to Diego's mailbox. This is my manager, and let me refresh and see if Diego got a mail request, approval request from me. Maybe it will come in a few seconds. Now, while we wait for this, let us save this app. And we'll save, where is it gone? It's here. I'll save this app. Actually, I've screwed up the connection information here. I removed a column, so I had to remove it from here too. Actually, I'll just connect it back to vacation requests. And I'll save this. I just do a Control S. It saves this app to the service. And now I can run that app from my phone as well instantly. So let us jump back to my phone. Actually, I'm Megan B, so I'll jump into this iPad here. Here it is. So this is another, actually I'm logged in as me here as well. I don't want to switch my context. You're logged in as myself, not as Megan B here. So let me jump back. Sorry for that glitch. I'll show you an app that I've already created, which is the fully customized version of it. I didn't take time to do all those customizations now, but there is an app which I've created called Vacation Requests, which are fully customized, and you can see what length I can customize it to. Actually, I'll go to dynamics.com for opening that. One more point to tell here is we want to make sure that dynamics.com becomes the single site where all our users go for LOB applications. So all the apps that you create in Power Apps will all surface out in home.dynamics.com. Along with Microsoft first-party apps like the CRM app, which is the sales app, or the operations app, which is the AX app, all of this will surface inside of Dynamics 365. And I've created a vacation request app here. I'll just open up that app in my browser to show how it looks like. This is maybe, I've taken it to the next level. I spent 1 hour more to customize this fully, but I put a beautiful looking picture there. I could even say new request, and it gives me exactly the same form, but I've put the right things behind it, and I can see a new request. I can view all the requests before, and I can even type the same. You see exactly the same experience is coming out here. This is a fully customized app that I have created out of it. Let's go back to the Studio version now. So now I'm coming to the installed Studio version. I'll introduce a few basic concepts here as how an app is constructed. So what we did earlier was we created an app from a SharePoint list. We created a button, clicked a button inside of a SharePoint list, and it created a new app for me. I could do that from within Power Apps as well. So within Power Apps, you can see I've already logged in as me, as I'm using my Microsoft credentials to log in. And let me change the environment to the default environment. And I can see a bunch of apps already showing up for me. So these are apps which I might have created or somebody else in my organization has created and shared it with me. So I can start using these apps if I want to. So just from Power Apps here, I can start using them. If I have been listed as a contributor to those apps, so somebody can add me or share an app with me with the contributor permissions, then I can even edit those apps. And you see these pencil icons on this side. Some of them are grayed out, some of them are not. So once they are not grayed out, I am an author or a contributor to that app. So I can even edit that app. Now this is a new concept too. If I don't like something within an app that I've got from my iPhone store, I cannot edit that app. I have to make a request, and someday the developer will make a change and push that and publish it, and I'll get it. However, in the context of Power Apps, these are documents. So if I am listed as a contributor, I can go ahead and say, edit that. I didn't like that red color you created. I want to create a blue color, and I'll change that and save it again. And everybody gets that updated version, and it's a live document which anybody can edit as long as we have given them contributor permission. So that's also another viewpoint that Power Apps brings to the table. Now we could also do the same 3-screen app creation by going to New App here and clicking on one of these boxes on the top. So these are start with your data. These are the same thing we did with SharePoint. You could click on the SharePoint icon on this side here, this icon out here, and start and do the exact same app. But here you'll have to specify which SharePoint list you want to connect to, which SharePoint portal you want to connect to. And the same exact experience can also happen with other data systems too. So if you have Common Data Service, which is part of our platform, you have a table there, you could create an app from there. If you have a SQL Server table somewhere, you could create an app from there. So it shows us a few boxes, but if I click on this arrow mark here, it takes me to many more connections, and all the connections that we support, you can create applications, similar looking 3-screen applications from any of those data sources. So that's one way to start. The other way to start is by application templates. Let me zoom in here. Application templates are, think about application templates are pre-built applications which cater to some functionality. You may click on it and install it to learn more about the types of apps and how they are created. So when I click on phone layout templates, for example, it gives me several templates to choose from, like alumni association, asset checkout. These are fully completed built apps with sample data in it. And we not only, in most of these cases, we provide you the access to the data as well. So we'll ask you, where do you want this template to be created? Or where do you want the sample data of this template to be added? We'll ask you for a OneDrive location or a Dropbox location or OneDrive for business location or a Google Drive location. And we'll upload an Excel sheet there, which is the database for your app. And you can customize the data, you can play with it, all the formulas are there, and you can customize it and make it yours. So template is another way to start. I will not jump into templates today, but I'll jump into the basic blank app creation. And this is something, it will help us understand the concept of Power Apps. So blank app, and we'll start with the tablet layout blank app. And we'll understand the basic concepts of Power Apps. So Power Apps is made up of screens. Like any PowerPoint is made up of slides, this is made up of screens, and you see the current screen on the left side, and the selected screen shows up in the middle for me to add and edit. I can add new screens from clicking on this new screen icon. This new screen icon is just for that. And I can even edit screens, this small triple dots here. I can click on that and say, duplicate screen, delete screen, move it up or down. And I don't want an extra screen now, so I'll just delete it. But that's how you add screens. So app is made up of screens, and each screen is made up of multiple controls and data sources. So I can insert an item or a control from clicking on this button or just navigating to this insert ribbon item on the top, and it shows me a bunch of things I can drop into my app or screen here. Let me put in a text box. I clicked on text box. It added a text box to my page, and you also see that there is a text box context-sensitive ribbon item showing up. So it is similar to Office in this sense. Office uses a similar usage. So people coming with Office background, people coming with PowerPoint and Excel experience, this should be pretty easy and intuitive to pick up. Shouldn't be a lot of learning in order to understand how to deal with these applications. And like what any Office application does, you can just resize it using the handlers. You can modify the properties. Here I will just say the size, let the size be 40. And I can, all the formatting options, if I may want to make it bold, I can do everything that a regular Office formatting can help you do. But there is more. This is basic, but every time I do something, it assigns a property value to a particular property. So when I made this bold, this changed the font weight to bold. And you can see the drop down here change as I keep changing things. For example, if I move the font size here, this changed the size to 36, and I'll zoom in a little bit for you. The people on the last benches can read. So there is a size, and it assigns a value of 36. And you can see here there is a FX bar. Similar to Excel, there is like a formula bar here. So this is the part where we can write formulas in. So if I select the text box here, and you see there is 36, I can start writing expressions instead of static values there. So for example, 36, I can say 6 into 6, which also computes to 36. And it will compute that and assign the value to it. Now, just writing arithmetic expressions may not make sense, but if you start combining them with references to other properties, so you can also use references like Excel does. In Excel, you can say cell A1 is equal to cell B1, and whenever B1 changes, A1 also changes because it has a reference to that cell. Similarly, here I can start adding references. So let's add another control. We'll add a control called the slider control. Slider. And as you would imagine, a slider control is something you can click and slide. So it gives you some values from 0 to 100, and you can specify what values by the min and the max properties. So 0 to 100 is just the default ones provided here. So we have a slider control now, and we have this text box. Let me make the size of it change by the slider. So I'll just say slider1 dot value, and slider1 value could be 0 as well. I don't want the font to go to 0, so let me at least add 10 to it. So minimum it should be 10, and it will add whatever my slider value is. Now this becomes a dynamic property. Instead of a static property, if I move my slider, the text changes. Now, this is a basic example, gives you understanding about how, but you can start using this too. In most reader apps, you have a way to increase the font, decrease the font. If somebody wants, you just give this control and make all the controls take a dependency on this, control. Controls are global. So if you put a control in any of the screens, you can still refer to the same control name and always extract not only the primary property, in this case value is the primary property. You could extract any property. There are around 15 properties a control has. You can extract any property and refer to that in any property. Let's take another example. There is another property here, and I can start typing into this drop down to just, it's a combo box. So I can find out properties. There is a color property which gives an RGBA value, which is that light, dark gray value. It is a RGBA, so red, blue, green value. I can even give names to it. So I want to give it black or gray, dark gray. Let's keep it dark gray. But I can start putting formulas here besides references. So if I want to add a formula here, I'll say if the slider value is greater than 50, then make it red or dark red. Otherwise, keep it dark gray. And as soon as I close my bracket there, let me show the formula again to you. You will find this is very, very similar to Excel. If and sum and lookups and everything, we will try to match the expression syntax of Excel wherever possible, so that people coming with Excel background should feel it natural. The benefit we got here is we got a conditional formatting now. And this is simply by hooking up this formula in here, and the formula is on the color one. So as soon as I go beyond 50, you'll see it turn to dark red. So then it's up to your imagination how you want to connect the dots and how you want to start putting logic for your app. For example, I want to do, I'll add a media, and I'll add a camera control. Because it's an app, I can put camera, and my device has 2 cameras, so I can see you guys here through the camera. And I want to add a gallery below, which will capture the camera along with maybe the GPS location of the camera, or when I took the picture, right? So I want to just display all those pictures here, and later I could upload it somewhere if I want to. So what I'll start writing is, when I click on this, I have now another concept called the action. So I'll go to Action tab here and click on Select. When I click on the camera image here, it should collect the current picture into a collection called My Pictures. So I defined a new My Pictures collection there, and I want to capture the camera's picture, so camera1.photo, but I also want to collect the GPS location. So let me put in a brace here and say the photo is this, and then the comma. The second property I want to say is latitude. Latitude is location.latitude. So location is an object available for Power Apps. You can just get your current GPS location, location.latitude, comma, and longitude is location.longitude. So I captured these 3 fields. When I click on the picture, it will capture it. And what I also want to do is, when I click on that picture and that collection is captured, I want to bind that collection to this gallery below. So gallery is another control which gives you an ability to bind to a tabular data source, anything that has rows in it, and each of this cell will bind to one row. So let me just click on this icon on the right side. I'll zoom in here. I'll click on this small icon here, or I could type the name of that collection. I'll just click on this and say I want to bind to My Pictures. Right now it's blank because there are no pictures, obviously. But I'll run this app in full screen. I'll click on it once. You see that the latitude, longitude, and the picture got captured. And it is runtime, so I keep on capturing with different angles. You see that this is now capturing that. The value you get out of it now is, imagine there are so many business scenarios. I've seen, even when we were looking at the lunch time here, when the lunch table is set up or all those lunch boxes were set up, somebody has to take a picture and report it back that this is set up correctly. There are picture-taking scenarios are everywhere. Insurance scenarios, barcode scanning scenarios. There is a native barcode scanner control which you can use for scanning barcodes. There are so many things that you can enable. As a power user, you are not writing a single line of code, and all of this power is available to you. If I just save this app now, I'll save this app, Control S, give it a name. I'll just give it a name saying, this is the Tech Summit demo app, Jan 20th, and click on this save icon there. So now I am choosing to save this document on the cloud. I could have chosen to save this document on this computer. That is the other option I have right here. And if I'm still drafting the app, I'm not wanting to use this from any other device, I could keep it on my computer and continue it when I want to. But I chose to save it on the cloud now. And since it's a tablet app, I'll run it from my iPad here, just to show that the app instantly will be available on a different device. And here it is. So we are on my tablet. I am, by default, going to favorites. Let me go to all apps. And I'll pull this down to refresh this list, because I just saved this app. Let's give us a few seconds to go to the cloud, get my new apps. And the top app, let me see what I'm sorting by. Here it is. So Tech Summit, the first one, Tech Summit demo app. I'll click on that. And now it downloads that app. It was a landscape mode, not a portrait mode, so I'll orient it this way. The exact same app that we created, it tells me it is using the camera and the location. Do you want to allow this? Yes, certainly. I only created that app. I see exactly the same app. I'm still seeing that slider. I can click that picture and click more pictures, and it's all capturing the GPS from this device. It has, so amazing capabilities, instant creation. If I like this app and I want to share it, this is not an app that is usable yet, but I could just I could share the app from here. I could share the app from my PC, and anybody I share this app with, let me show you that experience. Coming back to this, I can click on this icon on the top right, this small person plus icon. I'll just click on that, and I can specify who this app has to be shared with. And I can select anybody inside of my organization. This app, Power Apps, will send an email to that person, and that person can click on his link, which is sent on the email. And if they have installed Power Apps on their phone, they can instantly open up their app on their phone. If they haven't, they will be prompted to install it once if you want, or they can even run it on the web. They don't have to install if they don't want to. So if I want to send, say, Saurabh is my manager, I'll just send a mail to Saurabh. And it knows which users are there because it's associated with my login ID. And once I can, this is where I was saying you can make another person a user or a contributor. You can specify permissions that the person has. I can say user or a contributor. If I make him a contributor, he can go and edit this app as well. The moment I save it, if I have this checkbox checked, notify users by email, then he will get an email. If I don't want this, he has to go to dynamics.com or a phone app and search for my app or refresh this list, and he'll get an app that I have shared with him. Make sense? Let's jump to flow demos a little bit. So we'll go to flow, and we'll start creating new flows. So how do you start with flows? So you just go to flow.microsoft.com. Actually, I'll close this window and start a new one. Go to flow.microsoft.com. This is where flow lives. And just sign in. And it's already signed in because I'm still authenticated in this browser. And I can go to my flows to begin with. And we said, there are many types of flows we can create. Maybe I'll show a few examples here. One, maybe I want to say, save Contoso Cam. I'll enable this, edit this, and show it to you what it means. So I want a flow to monitor my email. And whenever there is an email, let me expand this, and this as well. So it is monitoring the inbox in my email, and I could have chosen other folders inside of my email if I want to. And it is monitoring for a subject filter called Contoso Cam. So if anybody sends a mail, let's imagine this is my product or this is some keyword, I want to just search by this. If anybody sends a mail with Contoso Cam as the filter, what I want to do is I want to include the attachments that are sent by them. So I've said include attachments is true. And I want to get who has sent the mail to me. So I will get the user's profile from my Office 365 account, and the person who has sent it. And one thing you note, when I click on this box, it gives me this dynamic content on the right side. And all this content is coming from that mail that arrived. So whichever mail that matches that filter criteria, I can extract all the properties from that and then use it in other actions. And that's why we flow those properties as dynamic content from one trigger to action to action to action. And that's why the name flow came up. So we are basically flowing these properties across. That's the value of it. I could have used, there is already using from. I could have used the importance, the name of the attachment, anything that I want. So I just want who has sent it. I want to find out that person's name and then create a file inside of my Contoso CAM attachments folder on OneDrive for Business. So this is my OneDrive for Business, and I can choose which folder it goes to from the root. Actually, I don't want to make it go into the root. Let's go to that Contoso CAM attachments. So these are all my folders on my OneDrive for Business. I want it to go to Contoso CAM attachments folder, and I want a new file to be created by whatever the name of the file is, in brackets, the person who sent that file, and with the exact content that was attached in my email. So let's update this flow, and we'll run this flow. Whenever I save a flow, it also gives me a neat debug view. I get a chance to test my flow once. And so it is waiting for that event to happen. So let me test it by sending myself a mail. So let me just send a mail to myself. This is the new mail. Here it is. To Megan, Contoso CAM, test mail. And let me attach something to it because the attachments is the one. And I'll just go to, maybe I'll pick up an older attachment. Nothing in this folder. Okay, let me go back to my computer. This is not right. Yeah, there is this SVG file. Let me just add this attachment. Attach as a copy. So this new file was attached. Let me just send it to myself. If I go back to flow, actually I already got the test mail here. Here it is. So it executed that, and it said when a new mail comes, and I can even see all the parameters that got executed. The mail was from Megan B to Megan B. It was a test mail. It had this body, and it had one attachment, message ID, conversation ID, attachments. There is a lot of information for me to read through. I found the user. It was Megan B. I got all this information from Office 365. Gave me the display name, the given name, surname, nickname, business phone. I could use any of that in the action, but I only chose to use the name. And the last one was for every attachment, I created a file. Cool. Let's look at my OneDrive for Business. Actually, close this. Megan B, Contoso CAM attachments. And here's my logicapps.svg. Megan Bowen is the name. So it executed the entire flow on my behalf. And I didn't have to I didn't create a rule in Office. I didn't create a rule in Outlook, nor in OneDrive. And it connected all these things together. Now let me go back one more thing and show one more. Similar to Power Apps, we also have a Flow mobile app. So Flow mobile app is also available from iOS stores and Android stores. A Windows Store version is coming soon. And you can start creating apps that send push notifications to the Flow mobile device. So let's look at a few flows there which do that. Actually, where is my flow? Here. So I'll click done here. My flows. And maybe I'll just, I'll show actually the Flow mobile app with a cool functionality. A new thing that got added a few months back is the button functionality. So let me just connect it here and show you. And we can also create flows from the mobile app and edit flows or see the flow run history and everything. Switch back to this. Here I'll open the Flow mobile app. Here it is. And there are buttons. So let me create a new mobile flow. Flow also has a concept of templates that get me quickly started with all the things I showed you in Flow. They were pre-created. So I can even use a template to select a flow, and I'll create a button flow. I'm clicking on searching for button. And there are many templates that it is suggesting me. Templates are, pre-configured flows, which then you quickly customize to make it yours. There are various flows here. Let's say block out my Office 365 calendar for an hour. Let's use that now. Say I am coming out of a meeting and I have to do something, I have to send an email, I have to do some action items, and I don't want to be disturbed for the next hour. So I just want to block out that hour in my calendar. So I will just create this button. Whenever I click this button, it will go to my calendar and block it out for an hour. So I'll use this template. It gives me, what is a calendar ID I want to block. So I want to block my calendar. And I don't want to give any of the other parameters. Let me just give the name of it. It's just a calendar block. Create the flow. So now when I click this button, I have already created a flow by the same name. Let me change something here. Create. So this flow is created. I can see my flow, and it's already enabled. If I go to my buttons now, you see that new button has been created for me. It says block out my Office 365 calendar for an hour. So if I'm coming out of a meeting, just open up the Flow app, and I click this, it will block out my calendar for an hour. So it's already executed. Let's see my calendar. Outlook. Calendar. Calendar block from a flow, 4:26 p.m. And it just executed it on my behalf, and I can do smart things because my flow not only allows me to click buttons, it also can pick up my current location. It gives me the GPS and location. So if I'm at an unknown place and I want to find out what's the temperature here, I could go to MSN Weather, which is one of the connectors, and just say, get me a quick weather forecast for today, send me a push notification, and you see the push notification just came up, high of 45, low of 40. And I don't even know whether it is Chicago or Schaumburg or which part of Chicago am I in. It just takes the GPS location and gets me what I need. You can start pushing, connecting this with multiple other things. I didn't show approval workflows and things, but it gets very powerful once you start exploring and doing things there. In the interest of time, let me maybe take some questions now, I guess. So jumping back to this. Yes, any questions that you might have for me, and I will always also be available after the session for questions. Maybe we'll start with there, and I'll come to you and then you. Yes, sir. If you can shout out, I'll repeat the question too.
So I saw online when I looked at Power Apps, there's a whole variety of connectors, and those connectors include other SaaS services that are
Yes.
Microsoft, like Box and Dropbox and Salesforce. So how do you manage your authentication for those apps?
Yeah, the question. Got it. The question is, there are multiple connections, even some of these to SaaS services like Dropbox and Box and Salesforce. How do you manage authentication to those services? So Power Apps works in a way that every user who uses the app brings their own authentication to those connections. For example, I used an app that is connecting to Salesforce, and I shared that app with you. When you run that app for the first time, it will prompt you authenticate with Salesforce using your credentials. In the same way, if I created an app against SharePoint and I shared it with you, it will authenticate you and say, provide your credentials to connecting to SharePoint in this case, so that when you create a new line item using my app, it will go as your name versus my name, who is the author of the app. So every user, for every connection in the app, brings their own credentials. It's similar to thinking about if I give you an app connecting to Facebook, which is also a connector, when you connect to it, you will see your Facebook details there. Because you provide your credentials, and your Facebook friends and pictures will show versus mine. Even though I might have created it with my data, you bring your own data or your connection and authentication. And as an administrator, you can also control which connections would you allow, which would you not allow. This is called data loss prevention at a tenant level, at an environment level. An administrator can prevent that. Hopefully, it did answer your question.
Okay, so it'll prompt for credentials, and it'll use those credentials to, is it effectively exercising APIs?
That's right. It is exercising the API using that credentials that you provided. We'll go to you, sir, first, and then I'll come to you. Yes?
You talked about that only the users in this same
Tenant.
Can use it.
The same users, the question is about who else can use Power Apps. The only people within the same tenant, the Office 365 or Azure AD tenant can use it.
I have multiple domains in my tenant.
That's a good question. I probably don't know the answer to that. We can try it out. Typically, we do, if they're all managed by a single tenant administrator and there is some relationship between them, we might be able to share apps between them. But I can double check, or if you can put me a mail, I can find out for you as well, whether you can, if you have multiple tenants within your organization, can you share apps across them? Yeah, I'll find it out for you. I will give you, meet me afterwards, I will give you my email to you. We'll go with the next question.
Yeah, just real simple, like what's the difference between Flow and Logic Apps? Because it looks very similar.
What's the difference between Flow and Logic Apps? Flow, behind the scene, is a Logic app. Every flow we save is a Logic app. In fact, the designer, you will see, Flow Designer and Logic App Designer is the same. The dev team is the same. Think about Flow is the business user version of Logic Apps. Logic App is meant for power users, I would say developers and IT professionals. You need to know Azure, you need to know how to deal with Visual Studio and Azure and all of those things. So everything you can do in a Flow, you can also do in a Logic App. And one day we will enable, if an administrator wants to take over a flow created by somebody and create a Logic App out of it, we will enable that functionality down the line. So today there is, it's not native, you cannot easily convert a flow to a Logic App. We will enable that down the line as well. The persona is the difference. It is a dumbed down version and much more business friendly version of Logic Apps. Yes, yes.
The vacation approval part, the app you mentioned about that you don't want to show the approval status field in there. Is there a functionality of having audience-based forms? So if a certain person signs in, they see certain sets of fields versus the other person?
Yeah. So is there a functionality to have role-based form creation? So you can put your own logic in it. Because you're the author of the app, you can say, if find the role of this person and don't show this field. Visible properties, navigation properties are all available. We do not have something from the platform to help you today. We will have custom roles in the common data service down the line which you can use. But the platform doesn't provide you like role-based access or something. You will have to create your own logic for it. But definitely we have scenarios where customers have done that today. Yes, sir.
In my business organization, people are already on Office 365, the licensing already in place, and they are using AD and Azure and everything.
Yes.
So when I look at the Power Apps, and we have custom business applications, and they have the usual desktop access, and we want to convert that. Can we use Power Apps to talk into our business applications, or is it only SharePoint and Microsoft?
Great question. So can we use Power Apps to connect to our custom business applications? So Power Apps can connect to any RESTful APIs. If you can expose your custom backend database, your business application today in a REST API, and you can describe it in a Swagger definition. Swagger is an OpenIO initiative for API definitions. Power Apps can connect to it and extract and push data and pull in data from there. So, and there are examples and a lot of links and articles on powerapps.com you can refer to. Custom APIs is what you should search for. Yes, sir, behind.
Following on the third-party connectors. So is there a preferred provider network to have your connector published or provided through?
Great question. So is there a way, if I want to add a connector, is there a preferred method for doing that? Today, we do not have an ISV story for connectors. The recommended way is to reach out to us and our team can help you out. We have the Power Users forums, Power Users ideas gallery. If you have a service and you want to build a connector for Power Apps, reach out to us. We have the connectors team who can work closely with you to help your connector be exposed through Power Apps. And there is a team working on it, but we also encourage, we do not have a published location or a process defined right now how you can add connectors, but right now you can reach out to us and we can enable you for that. Questions from the back here? Yeah.
Are there any plans to allow users to publish their app to the iOS and Android apps?
So are there any plans to allow users to publish their apps to the public iOS Android store? There are no current plans like that. The current apps that are created in Power Apps are all existing within the Power Apps environment itself. We do not have a functionality, nor we have a plan in the very near future to have something. Doesn't mean to say that we will never have that plan. If there is enough interest and demand, we might expose that, because ultimately these are apps built on Cordova framework, which are already cross-platform apps, and you can compile it into an iOS deployable state if needed. So recommendation is if you see that is a business scenario, there is a need for it, push it out as a feature request to us and we can consider that. Right now, there are no plans. Question here, yes.
You showed us a data view from a SharePoint list. Can we have a composite data from different sources to show on a single view?
So can we use multiple data sources on a single app? Definitely yes. That's one of the hero scenarios of Power Apps. Mashup apps where you have part of your data coming from SharePoint, part of your data coming from somewhere else, and you're making sense of all of that into a single app. Very, very valid scenario, and you can see many examples out there too. You can definitely do that. Even within SharePoint, the way which I have created, you can add other connections. It will again show up in the same app. It's very, very much possible, and you can do that, yes. Yes? I was having a hard time listening. I heard Salesforce and data model. So how would you connect to the Salesforce data model? Is that the question? So Salesforce is a connector available with us. So if you just click on Salesforce and it will prompt you for your credentials. As soon as you log into the credentials, it will show you all the objects within your instance of Salesforce, and you can just connect to any one of them like a SharePoint list. It will create an app for you directly, or you can use even multiple entities or objects within Salesforce to use in your app. Try it out. You will be amazed in the ease we connect to Salesforce as well. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend the last session. Feel free to give feedback, ask your questions through the feedback channel as well, and we are here to make you successful on Power Apps and Flow. Thank you. Have a great flight back home.